Rory, thanks for doing this. I'm glad that we had to reschedule, and I think conversations happen when they're meant to happen. And let me start off by saying, and I've been talking about this, one of my previous shows, because it's really just made me, it's just had me thinking ever since. And how I was introduced to you was from Will Tanner, and
Yeah.
what an impressive, just impressive guy he is.
Oh, I'll tell you, Will Tanner's mind is a beautiful thing, and his take on the world and where it's at, uh, his whole sort of gentlemanly positioning is fantastic. I'm always inspired by Will.
How did you guys connect?
We connected basically over Rhodesia, because he's got. I think he's the originator of the thought, or this theme that runs through the internet today of we're all Rhodesians now, and I just it just popped on my feed, and as a result, I started replying to him, and we became pals, and then I got on his podcast, and yeah, we've been firm friends for quite a while now.
Yeah, our last conversation, that's when your name came up, and I think I don't know if I said it on the recording or off the recording. I said, he mentioned you and your background, and I said, oh, I want to talk to him, and so if you don't mind sharing with people that are not familiar with your work, who are you, Rory?
Okay. Oh man, we've been cut off.
No, I'm here. I'm
For
here.
fuck's sake.
I'm here.
Are you?
Yeah, yeah, I'm good.
Excuse my language.
No, you can swear
I
all you
don't know
want,
where the
Rory. I don't
video
care.
is.
You're good. I can see
Sorry,
you, and
mate.
I can see you, and I can hear you.
Okay, well that's good. I think it's just me being paranoid here. That's good. Okay, well if you can see me, that's good. I'll figure out how to.
So we had a little bit of technical difficulties, and what are you going to do, Rory? It is what it is in the state of the world. We wouldn't be having this
Yeah,
conversation if it wasn't for technology, but sometimes it has its ways of screwing everything up.
it's pretty amazing. But I spent too many years in the bush, not focusing on technology trends or what was really happening in the world. I was busy exploring the continent, so I missed out a decade or two on the tech things.
Well, and especially, but it's what's crazy now when you look back, look where we're at today from a global standpoint, right? I mean, you're on the other side of the world from where I am, but the experience that you had, and I want to get into that. How valuable is that today versus, what you've learned in that time and what you've been able to pass on to your family, to me is so much more valuable than the technology because I don't know about you. I feel like we're not heading in a good place right now, at least in the United States. Maybe you disagree with me, but I'd much rather
Oh
have your
man,
skill
I
set, Rory. I'd much rather have your skill set right now, Rory, than what I got. I'm a guy that asks open ended questions.
yeah. Look, I mean, it's frightening. It's frightening when you look at how they took Nicolas Maduro out of his house, and what Elon Musk is doing, and what the Europeans want to do with digital ID, and the problem is with tech, it's always used to control people instead of benefit people. So that's the thing. But Big Brother's real, and us little minions have to make do with whatever sense of freedom we can generate. And I feel pretty good about the future because it's the only future I've got. And I'm not a apocalyptic dude, although during the day I might have a couple of rants or get really pissed at a few things. But you've got to keep your spirits up if you want to keep going. And I just find so much value in life and humanity, because what you see online, and like I said earlier before we had our technical glitch, what I really love doing is fighting communists online. It's really great, you know. But when I leave the farm and I go into town, I don't find many communists, you know. I just find thousands of people trying to make it through the day.
Well, and I think that's why my conversation with Will, coming back to him for a second, resonated so much because, people had said the comments that I got from it, mostly positive, but negative, were like, well, what good is it to make a living or make money or come out ahead if there's going to be nothing left? It's like, okay, well, if there's going to be nothing left, it doesn't matter anyway. If we're gonna think like that, and it's going to be, nuclear bombs and Mad Max and Red Dawn, if you remember that movie as a kid, growing up, it doesn't matter then the amount of
Yeah,
money.
and Democrats and Republicans and communists.
So
Yeah.
he provides a.
No, it's right, you know. Uh, we oh, I wonder what happened there. My internet said it was slow. You good?
No, I'm good. Yeah, yeah. No, what I was going to say is he provides a practical approach to work within the system the best that you can, and I think that through all this, and I've said this a few times, people will come out ahead through economic challenges.
Well, I mean, I've been a fighter all my life, you know. I've had every kind of fight you can have. I've had lots of gun fights. I've had legal fights. I've had physical fist fights. I've had oppression. I've been kidnapped. I've been abducted. I've been tortured. I've made money and lost money. You know, I've been married and divorced, and that's just literally you've got to take everything in your stride. You know, one of the things that I work in now is plant extracts, taking things out of plants that help people, and we're working on this amazing project right now where we have an extract out of a little plant that grows in the desert out here where I live, and it has incredible properties that are so good for your brain, your serotonin and your neurotransmitters, and it's an incredible thing. And the point I'm trying to make with that is that so many people let so much get them down that they got to live on pills every day to handle it, you know. And I often say that these tyrants that we have in Africa here, the dictatorship, let's say, in Zimbabwe, the sort of almost one-party state we have in South Africa, 31 years of one party in the majority, um, and that's a trend across the world. You guys have only got two to choose from. But I always say, you know, one of the biggest crimes against humanity is not so much genocide. It's not so much the oppression of people or even the corruption and stealing of public money. It's the oppression of the mind and the hopelessness that is drilled into people, you know. So yeah, it's a challenge being positive, but positive we must be. Otherwise, we've got no power to fix anything.
So we before we had the technical difficulties, you were starting to talk about your background, and yeah, I want to would ask if you wouldn't mind going into you know how you came to be.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you look on my X profile, you'll see that I'm a Rhodesian by birth. Um, I come from a long line of white Africans that have been on this continent since the late 1600s, 1670s, all the way to now, a mixture of uh, Dutch, European, English, Scottish, Irish, um, and yeah, we've been out here at this southern tip of Africa for centuries, and my great great grandfather walked with ox wagons, much like your great story, the great story of the how the West was won, the wagon trails across the Midwest and into the west of America. And we had very similar situation in this part of the world. And so my great-great-grandfather walked up with the infamous, famous, amazing, much talked about Cecil John Rhodes, and he was co-opted into Rhodes's pioneer column of a couple of hundred guys that went up into what is today Zimbabwe and settled that and brought development there. And so my family is an original settler family in what became Rhodesia and is today Zimbabwe. And as a result of that, because of our deep roots there, my family and my uncles and grandfathers were all quite pivotal people in the construct of that country. My grandfather was a mining and he was a mining and what do you call it, explorations guy, a conservationist, and yeah, it was quite something um, to know him and to be mentored by him. His son, my uncle, was the head of the national parks. In other words, the chief conservation officer of the entire country. And so, yeah, we were into mining, we were into conservation, we were into farming and agriculture, exploration. And that just, yeah, was a bug that basically is in my DNA. And so, yeah, I lived through the Civil War in Rhodesia and then through independence and the Zimbabwean situation until about 2012, 2014, when my son and I left Zimbabwe for finally and came to settle in South Africa, where, thank goodness, we had citizenship as well.
Well, I think you are the first person I've ever spoken to that's actually lived through a civil war. Can you describe, best you can, what that's like day to day? Because people, and then before you answer that, people throw that term around here in the United States very loosely, and I think that's a very I don't think people understand what that means. Um, so I be curious, what it's like. What was it like?
Yeah, I've often said on X, uh, people who don't know war talk a lot about war and the pros and cons of it. But if you've really been in a war, and I've been in two of them, um, you don't want to do it again, and unless you unless you're addicted to it, like some of my friends were, the mercenary boys who make a living from it. But yeah, war is a terrible thing. In Rhodesia, it was particularly difficult because it was the clawing, gnawing fight for the survival of a country that everyone's blood was so attached to. Black and white. We built that country from nothing, and so to be so proud of it and the achievements that were made there. I mean, it's incredible to think Rhodesia was 90 years in existence, 90, Mike, and that was it, gone forever. So what a short window, just a blip on the graph of time. But yeah, man, it was damn horrible. Um, Death, mayhem, terrorism. It wasn't like the Second World War, trenches and mortars and tanks. This was guerrilla warfare, so no rules. Barbarism, conscription, landmines, uh, unbelievable measures that one would have to take for security in order just to ensure that you lived through a day. Um, and it went on for about 15 years, So eventually, people got used to it, and actually, uh, we became acclimatized, as you'd say in America, acclimated
Or
We became
normalized. No,
acclimatized.
normalized.
Yeah, yeah, it becomes normal, and so eventually, um, guns and bullets and death and tragedy and supermarkets blowing up and people dying in landmines and your fathers and uncles and brothers being sent to conscripted and sent out onto the front lines and them dying. Every day on the news we had television in the 60s and 70s. We had black and white TV, one TV channel, and it was called the RBC, the Rhodesian Broadcasting Corporation. And at night, at I think it was about 7 p.m., the main news would come on, and then every single day they would have the communique, which was basically a report on the war to the public, to the citizens. It was the only place, that and radio, that you could get an update. And every single day they would say, the security forces regret to announce the death of, and then it would go through the day's death count, basically, of soldiers and civilians. And you don't, everybody, has no idea until you've been there, but you take for granted so easily what you have every day. The first time, when the war ended, the first time I really saw, like, how would I say, abundance, was when I realized there wasn't just one type of toothpaste or one type of coffee or tea, um, and we were so limited. Fuel was rationed. You'd have to get a coupon, and you'd queue for it, and you'd leave your car for 2 or 3 days to get a few gallons. In order to travel town to town, you would have to go in a military escort. So yeah, and a lot of terrorism, so barbaric stuff, real brutal stuff, which there's no point in repeating. But you're talking about the massacre of a group of nuns and priests at a rural mission. You're talking about diabolical things. I have some books in here that record that war, and they would uh, cut a man's lips and ears off and make his wife cook and eat them if they thought that he was an informer, or they wanted something out of him. So the brutality, the rape, the murder was out of off the charts, and so that happened 1965 to 1980, and then almost immediately started the Mozambique Civil War next door, which over 1 million people died in, probably the least war ever. And I have myself in there. Yeah.
The You still hearing me? Okay, can you see me?
Yeah, man. One of my ears has got a smaller hole in it than the other one
Oh,
from an injury. So this plug keeps popping
oh,
out. But all good, Mike.
oh.
Go for it.
So, what is it like then when you're going through that and you're just walking out the door to go to the store, or I mean, even in your local community when there's a civil war going on? I'm asking you this because I'm trying to, like, as best I can, have you paint a picture to apply it to, like, say, the area I live in, like, because we don't have that here. People are more worried about their lattes and their yoga mats in
Yeah.
Phoenix, where I'm at, versus, ever having to deal with any type of conflict. So
Or being
that's why,
misgendered.
or being misgendered. That's why I'm asking this question, because
Yeah.
I'm curious.
So picture it this way. Your town or your city is relatively safe. Okay? Occasionally it might get rocketed or mortared on the outskirts. From time to time there'll be a huge attack on either a preset bomb in the supermarket, or they might blow up the big fuel depot, you know, uh, in your industrial area of the town. But if you look at a day-to-day scenario, you're going to work, you're coming home, kids are going to school. It's relatively normal, though it's in this chaos, abundant chaos that's everywhere. But the towns were very well protected, very well solidly protected by the Rhodesian army and by the citizens themselves. The problem was that is an agricultural society, was an agricultural society. So most of the business focus was all based around agriculture and agricultural support systems. And so a lot of the population was rural based. And on top of that, we had lots and lots of small towns. And so the linkages between those towns, so just to travel, that becomes a nightmare and a gauntlet that you need to run. And then, of course, let us say you drive 50, 100 miles out of the city and you get to the next little town. And from there now, you need to get out into the farming district. And that's not asphalt roads. Now you're talking about little dirt tracks that going out into the farms. And then, it's landmines. And the national protection was on those main trunk roads where you would have perhaps a helicopter gunship if it's a really big convoy shadowing the convoy. You would have uh, pickup truck mounted double barrel Browning machine guns, maybe three of those at the beginning, the middle, and the end. You'd have some troop carriers. Every sort of 50, 60, 70 miles, there would be a checkpoint, a stop point, and that would be a fortified position. So it was wild, but eventually you would end up having to go home to your farm, and that's where it became really brutal because you pretty much were alone. And so you had to fortify your vehicle. We used to drive these landmine-proof vehicles with these bomb, landmine. We used to call them landmine-proof vehicles. The wheels would blow off, and they were built of very thick 1-inch bomb-proof steel that would deflect the blast away. And so if you hit a landmine, you had about a 80% chance of 70% chance of surviving, maybe lose your hearing or a limb. And then obviously we had guns all the time. So, when I was a little boy, 10, 11, 12 years old, I often, as a 12-year-old, would carry an Uzi. My dad with a 7.62, SLR, that kind of thing. So lots of guns. We had heavily, heavily fortified homes. We would put these big metal mesh screens in front, bolted onto the outside of the building over every wall to deflect RPG-7 rockets and hand grenades being thrown into the room when they attack your homestead. They'd break the window and throw a hand grenade in. So we had hand grenade screens. We built walls in front of those with firing apertures. We had bombs in our gardens, which were controlled from the master bedroom, where you would pull levers, and they were called Adams grenades. And essentially it was a black PVC tube filled with old bolts and nuts and a whole lot of explosives and a detonator with physical wires running. And we'd hide those things in all the most likely hiding spots that terrorists would ambush us from. And so when it broke loose, all hell broke loose, because the first thing you did was just pull those 10 or 20 levers, and it could detonate, 10 or 20 bombs filled with shrapnel. around, and then there was protocols, the little children and the women, the older elderly would go into ordinarily a strong room. We made a lot of the bathrooms like that, take a mattress in there and lie down on the floor and cover themselves with a mattress to stop debris and shrapnel hitting them. And then, yeah, it was to battle stations, So just leaving the farm on a Monday morning at 5 to get to the town to go to the school, was my grandmother had a pistol, I had an Uzi, just to go to shop at the trading store in the nearest town. Oh, it was wild. It was crazy, man. Schools were attacked. It was a violent, dangerous time, Mike.
Did you take your Uzi to school?
No, but you go with it on the way to school, and then it stays in the car.
Were the teachers armed then?
It depends where you were. Um, so there were some schools that were near the borders, like on the eastern border of Rhodesia, on the Mozambique, on the border with Mozambique. There's a town which my ancestors, largely built. Was called Amtali. It's now called Mutare, and that had the school. It was right on the border with Mozambique. It's the most beautiful place, tropical rainforest, beautiful, beautiful, magnificent place to be. And that there we used to get mortar attacks on that school, and so there you would then have what they called Part 2 Police Anti-Terrorist Unit. That was the older guys, maybe guys like yourself, myself, when we did our military call-ups, then we would be on security details, maybe a permanent machine gun nest outside or at one of those schools or at a farm in a particularly difficult area. So wherever we could, there would be protection. But, there's not really enough people to go around to protect everybody. So you really had to look after yourselves. And it was a wild time, man. You go to sleep at night and as a child in your bedroom. And yeah, crazy time. You don't sleep easily, You're listening to everything. So it was very stressful. It went on for a decade and a half.
How do you mentally manage that, or how have you mentally managed that? Even you've retold the story, I'm assuming 1,000 times, but and being older now, I mean, how does it impact you, and how do you mentally manage it?
It's a very good question because I'm struggling quite a lot with that as I get older. Um, Without having nothing to prompt it. I don't feel like my life is good right now. I'm happy. I'm well fed, as you can see. I've got a, I've got a good home. I've got a beautiful partner. I've got my family. Well, I've got my son with me. We've got a good business. But I am suffering more and more from PTSD now, which is quite scary because it hits me in a particularly unusual way. But I've never really. We don't talk about it. I mean, I'm certainly not going to go to therapy. I just got to figure out what's going on in my head. But yeah, I mean, it does come back to bite you. And I also, like I say, I was involved in the Mozambique Civil War, and that was horrendous. I was older, and I was involved at a very high level with the one of the big colonels. So and I've seen a lot of action in Zambia. If you watch my show with Will Tanner, I did quite a bit of like man hunting, if you like, running down groups of bandits and following smuggling networks and things like that. So how it affects you, man? We firstly, our society was built on stoicism. We were and are stoics of the highest order. So there was very little uh, how would I say it without offending people? There was very little, um, there was no suicidal empathy, Mike. There was certainly no, oh, come here, baby, if a little bit of blood, an injury was looked at in terms of its actual severity. Everybody knows the pain of a paper cut, and everybody in those days knew, if you were wounded and you really needed care. So we just didn't have a very empathetic world. It was a war, and so
No time. No,
the kids were tough.
Roy, let me interrupt you. No time for pussies, basically, and crying.
It was not gay.
No, I mean, no time for like for pussies. No time for whining. There was no
Yeah,
time for.
yeah, yeah, for sure, dude. No, there, absolutely no time for pussies there. Um, it was a time of madness. It was a time of death, a time of survival. So essentially, we were not wrapped in cotton wool. You know, your mom would be carrying your little sister on her hip and have a shotgun in her right hand. Your grandmother could run a 12 gauge all day, She could reload a Bren, a Sten, an MAG, or an FN 762. We were a fay with every kind of thing, including always being around firearms and guns. And then, of course, every single day bombarded by the tragedy and the reality of it. So, then we didn't have time to think about it because every single day was an intense day. Fortunately, and I say this to I don't want to paint the wrong picture. Living in Rhodesia, even so, was wonderful. It was an amazing time, amazing place. Our schools functioned. We still played sport against each other. We still went on holidays. So it was special. But for the rural folk, man, it was pretty crazy. And yeah, how you deal with it is in that way. Your grandfather, your father, your uncles, your brothers, your cousins, everyone is a stoic. Everyone's involved, and you'd rather get a clap on the ear if you cry than sympathy. So, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, I don't know, and I don't really care. It's something I don't want to argue about because it's history. But yeah, later on it does come back. Little flashes, and I find myself jerking. I get a jerk, or I get like a cataclysmic thought of something happening because when you've seen people explode and blood and people dismembered and ripped to shreds or shot with a machine gun, these images don't leave you, and particularly if you've been involved where people die and you've had a hand in it. And that is why probably a lot of guys who have really been in war, and particularly these special forces guys, they don't tend to talk much about it in any particular detail because to glorify it is to lessen the severity and the seriousness of war and to disrespect those who died.
Yeah, I've heard that, from special forces people that I've had on, and also, in regards to some that are selling their stories, right? And I don't need to name who some of those are that made into movies and what have you. And uh, I'm not a special forces person, obviously, but I could see why some would not like these stories being sold, right, and being put out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't care. I think we need to speak. Um, my generation of people um, have never had a platform.
Hmm.
You know, um, we were Rhodesians first, then we were white Zimbabweans, and then we were disenfranchised and fucked up by those communist ZANU-PF guys in post-independent Rhodesia. In Zimbabwe, they took our land, our farms, destroyed our families, and now in South Africa, they're doing it again. So I believe it's time to talk. It's time to expose these things. It's time to let the world know, and that's why I hop on these chats with you and Will Tanner and whoever else will have me, because it's an opportunity for people to know that there's real people out here going through this stuff, yeah, and it's interesting, I'm sure.
So what in terms of what you're doing then? Because we talked about earlier how if you stay on the internet all day, it's gloom and doom and nuclear bombs coming in and magnetic pole. I don't know. I still don't get the whole solar flare, magnetic pole, Earth shifting. I don't know if you ever follow any of that stuff. To me, if that happens,
Yeah.
do it right where I'm at, because I don't want to live through any of it. I don't want to live through that. If the whole world's going to get nuked, I hope they put one right where I live, because I don't really want to come out on the other end of that. I mean, would you? Would you want to? I mean, if South Africa is going to get nuked, do you want to live through that?
No, no. I mean, but I don't care. it's like it's like cata, catastrophe, a cataclysm. I mean, there are things that you can change and fight, and there are other things that you can't. I don't care if the world is round or flat, Mike. You know, I just don't give a fuck about it. But I do like watching them hate each other. you know, um, my main thing is truth. I'm not clever. I'm experienced. Um, I'm not well educated, but I've read 2,000 books. Um, I, I, I've got a position that I've got a placement in this world. I belong. I am me. I have my own ideas, and I believe. I mean, just recently we've been dealing a lot with America, because we're selling our products over there in California now, and hopefully in all 50 states and Greenland eventually. But but yeah, we're dealing with it, and it's quite strange to see, the Western mind has been politicized out of a position. You're a shameful person if you're white. That's already like, whoa, you know, that's a bad start point. And I mean, if you're black, you're stereotyped as a looting crazy person anyway. And if you're a Hispanic, you can't like this guy. And but I see the Western world, particularly in the democratic West. Your New Yorks and your Californias and your Belgiums and your Germanys. People are terrified of everything. They're terrified of the climate. They're terrified of Trump. They're terrified of speaking out, of misgendering somebody. I mean, there's so many rules, so many fucking things to think about, that no wonder you're confused and alone. No one live in a shoebox, because that's your safe space. And you live online. And I mean, I'm very lucky because I'm in Africa, and you're somewhere in a beautiful place out west, I suppose. And you must have access to the wilderness, and what you see with your daily eyes might be beautiful, and I rely on that, and my community and the people and my culture, and the fact that I have a lot of people like me, like-minded people around me, broadly around me. So we're very, very buoyed by that, and that helps you get through the day. And then, of course, you just got to temper that with how much time you spend online fighting communists.
When you come to the United States, do you maybe I'm wrong by saying this. I would literally laugh when you hear some of the problems that people might, in your interactions. Like, you don't know what bad is. Like, you have no idea. Although, I mean, some of these major cities, I mean, they are just continuing to decay and rot, like Chicago and Los Angeles and Portland and on and
Detroit.
on. Detroit and all of them, really. I mean, I live outside of Phoenix. I mean, Cleveland, where I grew up, they've all deteriorated. You look 10 years ago to today, and they're not better, they're worse. Some worse than others, but do you just laugh when you come
Yeah.
to the States?
Look, I mean, yeah, look, I'm going to be over there soon. Like I said to you in the preamble to this when we were talking, my mom lives in the US and she's not doing well. So I got to come there and then we've got to go out to California and promote our products and stuff. So I'm excited about that very much. And man, I love America. You know, it is amazing. Um, you know, there are things there. Well, to your question, yes, your problems and our problems. And what is a challenge for us and a challenge over there is a completely different thing. I mean, literally, your biggest challenge is which choice to make, over the color of something or your sexuality, or that maybe your plane is delayed. Here we have here we have brutality on a proper scale. So yeah, I mean, I think we have a rate every how much every 17 minutes. Every 17 seconds, a woman gets raped in our country, and that's 60 million people. We have 80 first-degree murders a day. We have uh, live terrorism, dude, and lawlessness at a mass scale. We've got a government that is a kleptocracy and a murderous wannabe dictatorship. So, yeah, it pales in comparison, I think, indeed, the West to us. But I suppose anyone's problem, one man's meat is another man's poison, eh, Mike? So, whatever tears you down and strips you of your dignity is a real problem, and I see that in the West, very much so. And it's interesting, I come from Rhodesia, Zimbabwe. I've come to South Africa, which is a way more modern country. South Africa is awesome. I encourage you to visit, and your listeners, your viewers to visit. It's amazing. Fly direct from New York to Cape Town, and you will have the time of your life, and you've got about a 99.9% chance of making it home. It's pretty amazing for the most part, and then there's areas that you just cannot go to. But America is amazing too. The the hard work that goes into that place, the technology, the scale of it. I mean, when you come from there, you just can't imagine it. But like for us, I visited NASA at the Kennedy Space Center. I think it is in Florida, and it blew my mind. The scale and the things that Americans do. Just your aircraft carriers. Speaking of Iran, I mean, what America is capable of. And in the right hands and with the right momentum, America could literally now change the world. Um, and some people believe Trump is trying to do that.
Do you have a favorite place in the United States that you love to visit?
Well, I tell you, I've not traveled too much, but I've seen quite a bit of the South. So I've been to New York, and I've been to Florida, and I've been down in Alabama and Louisiana. I've been up in the Midwest a bit, Kansas and Missouri. I've been to Tennessee. I've been to the Ozarks. And I love America, just driving through it, just seeing it. And one thing I can tell you that you guys don't know is that your wildlife is amazing, just in terms of the density of it. Like I said, my mom lives in Florida, in Orlando, one of the biggest metropolises on earth and the fastest expanding in terms of population. And she's got raccoons and possums and armadillos running about. And you look from the highway and there's lakes with alligators in it. And, everybody's always fishing, hunting, and shooting and carrying on. And so your conservation ethic is quite unbelievable. Whereas here, we've nearly killed all of our rhinoceroses, Mike. Fuck, man. Because the Chinese use their horns, as some sort of strange medicine. And they kill our pangolins or armadillos. So here, things are getting wiped out. Rivers are becoming totally poisoned. There's, my family farm in Zimbabwe is from a place that actually my family founded. It's called Penhalonga. And there we had a magnificent farm called Summerfield. And today it is an open cast Chinese gold mine. And they're pouring arsenic and mercury into the rivers. Fish populations are dying. Wildlife areas are being deforested. Zimbabwe grows tobacco. It's its biggest agricultural crop. Not food, mind you. Tobacco. And it was self-sufficient in food, but now tobacco is the biggest crop. But listen to this. In the Rhodesian times and early Zimbabwean times, we have huge coal mines in the west of the country. We had a completely functional railway network across the entire country. And tobacco was also a major crop back then. And in order to cure tobacco, so you can't just pick a leaf and put it in a cigarette, you've got to cure it with heat and moisture and get the leaf to the right moisture content and cure it, and then it goes into bales and it's auctioned, and then it goes to the smokers around the world. But the curing barns, as we would call them, or the curing system was a coal-fired system. And so the trains would bring the coal and trucks would bring the coal to the farms, and the farmer would use the coal to burn to cure tobacco. Zimbabwe today grows more tobacco than we did during Rhodesia, but they use virgin forest for it. 30,000 hectares of indigenous forest every single year disappeared just to cure tobacco, man. So the environmental challenges that we face, our infrastructural decay, is unbelievable. And so going to America to kind of get back on track is very refreshing, even though it too is in decay. But it's still massively inspirational for us.
Yeah, it's. I went on a mini road trip last year, and like I told you, I live in Arizona and I grew up in Ohio, but I went down to North Carolina, through West Virginia, North Carolina, upstate New York, part of Tennessee, and it made me realize, what you said really connected, because you don't get that flying from place to place, but when you get in the car and you drive, you see, like, I only saw a very, very tiny sliver, but the United States, it's a big country, man. Like, and there's a lot of space, a lot of space.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's awesome, and I think what leads nicely in the conversation is that your government is bringing people like me over there as refugees right now.
Are you thinking about, would you relocate here?
Only after I've had a very, very good fight, and it's my very last, you know, uh, proposition, because um, this this home of ours is worth building and staying in, and it's so weird, but I mean, like, South Africa is as old as America. 1652, our people came here. It's a long, long time ago. And so they're generation after generation buried in the soil here. the home that I sit in here is it used to be a workers' cottage, and it's beautifully renovated now. We got five of them along this river called the Kamanasi, which is a Khoisan word, the mountains of water, the Kamanasi River. And just across the river in front of me here is this nature park, if you like. It's just wilderness. But we've got leopards here. We have lynx, we got, a lot of cobras and snakes, and it's great. We've got otters and wild pigs and ant bears and jackals, your coyotes. And I'm surrounded by farmers, hard-working farmers, man. They grow onion seed and raise ostriches for meat and dairy and beef and flipping sheep, and there's butcheries and abattoirs, and there's all manner of produce and production, and ancient families that have been living on the same farm for 10, 11 generations. And so, no, I don't go to America. But yeah, if it becomes intolerable, it is a very, very nice landing pad. And also, people don't have generally what I have and access to it. So, people from other parts of this country are really in dire situations. And a lot of them have been through incredible trauma, being attacked, murdered, farm murders, tortured, hijacked. Uh, it's very common here, like to get caught in the crossfire of a big armed robbery, or to be at the traffic lights and have a gun in your face, or to be pulled off the road and attacked, or to be raped. Murder, like I say, like it's one of the very most dangerous places. In fact, it's more dangerous than most war zones, um, in general. Yeah, yeah. So the people, Trump is justified in giving those people that need it a genuine way out of what is fucking traumatic, man.
The I got two questions for you. One, I'm curious, as a parent, raising your kids in this world, is it to the point where you're like almost like a helicopter parent, or like what's the line of like they've got to grow up and live their lives too, but you also want to be the protector. I'm not a parent, so I have no understanding of this. But how do you do
Yeah.
that, raising kids in an environment like that?
So this place is a very staunch place, mate. You know, like I don't know if you've ever seen the game of rugby.
Went to a few parties in college. Some of the best parties I ever went to. I was always so glad I didn't play. What I saw the rookies have to go through. Drinking beer out of a
Yeah,
boot.
so
Drinking beer
rugby,
out of a boot. People spit in the boot. Oh,
yeah, and it's really violent, and it's a beautiful game. And South Africa is the reigning world champion rugby nation. And not only that, the World Cup, which only happens once every 4 years, like the soccer World Cup, uh, we've won it twice in a row now. and
maybe the internet doesn't like what we're talking about today, Rory. They keep trying to kill our signal here.
Yeah, you got my QAnon particles going there.
The evil villains of the superhero movie are trying to take us down because Rory, we're if anybody that knows me, I've been saying this, and then people are starting to get pissed, but I don't even care because
Yeah,
there are people out there that think this is a superhero movie, and my response to that is, this is not a superhero movie we're living in. I don't even watch those anymore. I used to like those movies, but because
yeah,
like I keep saying it now, I'm so turned off by those movies because it's like maybe they were doing it on purpose to condition us, putting these things out as much as they were.
yeah. I mean, man, look at it. Put it this way: uh, I don't watch movies. You know, uh, I got pissed off when they stopped making westerns. Uh, you know, then we watched some series. You know, Game of Thrones. Wow, and dragons flying. You know, ah. No, I mean the world is very affected by that, but not. It's not a Superman movie, bro. It's not a superhero movie. It's real. And what we were saying is how do you raise kids out here? You know. Well, I mean, you raise them because you got them and you have to. But but it's an amazing country. So the education system, if it's private, is excellent. The medical system, if it's private and you pay for it, it's excellent. Companies, if it's privately paid, are excellent. But if you rely on the state for anything, you're in real trouble. And the majority of people have to rely on the state. And for them, this is not a place to be poor. It's not a place to be struggling. It's not a place that you don't have your medical insurance and you don't have your private security on speed dial and you don't have your cameras and you don't have your guns and you know. But be that as it may, in many places in this country, it's a fantastic place to stay. Our schools are amazing. So it's a great place to raise kids. And a lot of us believe that it's the best place to raise your kid because, you know, it's your Oma and your Opa, it's your granny and your granddad, it's your uncles and aunts and extended family and the history of your life. And people who don't have that really are poor, you know, in a cultural sense. And so the Afrikaners in South Africa are represented so well by several really good organizations. My friend Ernst van Sale from AfriForum and Jacques Brouderijk and these amazing people, you know, 400,000 members in the social grouping. They really are well looked after. They're building universities, they're building trade colleges. They've got, I think we've got 15 or 16,000 guys signed up in our security networks. We have incredible communication networks. Everybody's looking out for us, for each other, you know. So it's not a bad place to live. I would rather live here than there right now. And as challenging as it is, Mike, I'm a stayer, you know.
You know, the last question I have for you, before the internet gods take us down again, is, you know, if you'd like,
Sure.
talk a little, you know, talk as much as you like about your company and what you're doing, and you know, the solutions that you're providing for people.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Well, I mean, you know, as tough as life has been and as difficult of experiences that we've been through out here, you've got to live every day in the place that you are, and there's a lot of poverty in this part of the world, you know, and a lot of suffering, and a lot of hunger, and a lot of kids just with no future, because we have this kleptomaniac communist government in lockstep with the European Union. It's just insanity. You know, they won't let Starlink come to our country. Elon Musk is the richest man in the world. He's from here, man. You know, and and they will not let Starlink into this country. They hate Elon Musk. They hate Donald Trump. They hate anything that has to do with uh, 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 anything that isn't part of this leftist process. You know, that's going on around the world, and it's a tough thing to live under if you're poor, and there's a lot of poverty, and people are getting poorer and poorer and poorer because just like the West, they're destroying the economies, they're deindustrializing, you know, the nation, and so unemployment is just off the charts. Schools can no longer really teach people anything of value, and now 30% is a pass mark in this country. If you get 30%, you pass, man. So people are becoming less educated, less capable, and 20 million of the 60 million people in this country are on social grants paid for by the 7 million remaining taxpayers. It's 11% of the country pays tax, dude. So, so therefore, people like me who have a business and work hard are very much focused on creating jobs and trying to grow our business, because it is through us and our companies and private enterprise and hard work that people have jobs. And here, when you employ somebody, you support a minimum of 5 to 7 people per person. So if I have 10 employees, I'm looking after 70, you know. And so I'm working very closely with community leaders here. Where I live is the very southern tip of Africa, in what is called the Cape of Good Hope. It is now a province called the Western Cape, but it was the Cape of Good Hope of old. And here the people are a mixture of Boer descendants, Afrikaner descendants, and the original Khoi and San people. And so we have white folks like me and our culture, which is the English Anglo-Afrikaner culture. And then we have the Khoi and San, some of the most old uh, cultures on earth. And that is what we predominantly deal with. And so what I've specialized in over the last years is looking at medicinal plants that were ancient traditional knowledge. So ancient traditional plant medicines, teas, edibles, fruits, whatever it might be. And then we look deeper into the science of those things and then do the science on them and figure out what components of these plants actually work and how do they work, and are they actually medicinal, or is it all mythology and folklore? And you'll be amazing how many antioxidants and incredible things that fight skin cancer and mental pressures and all of these things are in there. And so, yeah, I've got what is called HP Biotech is my company. It's a biotech company, and we work on the higher end of making extracts and concentrates of these plants, and then formulating products with them, or cooperating with industry to form new beverages, new medicines, new supplements, and things like that. And I work hand in hand with a beautiful old man called Wumpum Mooney. He's the chief of the Atakwa Khoi of Kanaland. It's an ancient tribe of Khoi people, and me and him and his team work closely together so that we have the cross-cultural, biocultural protocols all in place, so that we link it back to the ancient medicines, and we use that in our promotions overseas. And so we really hope that we can grow this thing, because we have hopes to invest into education and community safety. We have feeding centers. You know, a friend of mine runs a feeding center up the way, feeding 500 kids a day, Mike. You know, we've got a safe house there for abused little girls. There's always 8, 10, 20 little girls in there. You know, children disappear here. Human trafficking here is a real thing. Body parts, human trafficking, slave networks, you name it. It's all a go. And so, yeah, that's what I'm doing. And my purpose is not only money. It is the greater community and what I can invest back into my town and my district and the people around me to make it a better place, Mike.
Where can people find you, Rory?
Really, I'm just on X these days, and you can see me on Facebook there occasionally. I'm Rory Duncan, 1966 on X, and and otherwise I'm Rory Graham Duncan on Facebook. And you can interact with me there. But I prefer to be on X, really focused. I just have a lot of old friends that are on Facebook, so I go on there occasionally. But that's about it. And then a few podcasts, you know, and things like with Will Tanner and some of the local guys. And now you, which has been fantastic. I'm really really happy to have had time with you, man.
Me too. And, I'd love to have you back on. And I mean, I could sit here and talk to you for 3 hours. I thank you for this. And I look forward to our next conversation. So, if you're
Yeah,
coming through Arizona on your
at
trip
your
to,
leisure.
and if you're coming through Arizona on
Hey,
your tour, ping me and
hey, man,
meet up.
I've got to come out that way. I'm definitely going to see a woman called Wanjiru Njoya, a wonderful professor of history, and she's in one of these great societies in the South, and she's fighting that historical battle out there. Will Tanner, there's yourself. So that would be great. I've never been to Arizona, so I'd love that. But look, we've just scratched the surface here, Mike. There's a lot, man. If people are interested, you just look me up. We're in contact. So whenever you want to have a gap filler, call me and I'll jump on with you.
Appreciate it. Mic drop.